You're at an open house. You tour the homes, you're taking pictures, you're asking questions, and the agent asks you, "So are you thinking about moving?" And you say, "Oh, no, not me. I have a 2.6% interest rate. I'm never leaving." The agent is thinking, then why are you here? You ever run into that, Jason?
All the time, all the time. And what's funny is if you live in the neighborhood of the open house, I totally get it. Like you're just there you just be a nosy neighbor, which is cool. I love nosy neighbors. But if you're coming from across town on the other side of League City or wherever you're at, uh, you might be here for a reason.
Yeah. Let me throw out some statistics, okay? In January 2021, 30-year mortgages hit a historic low of 2.65%. I guess that must be where the 2.6 came from, with rates averaging 2.96 for the year. Many people refinanced or bought homes at these rates, and now they're comparing those two rates around 6 to 7%. As of 2025, about 22% of all existing mortgages carry a rate below 3%, and 75% have a rate below 6%. Those owners are locked in and are aware of it. The typical U.S. homeowner stayed in their home 12 years in 2025, up from the historical norms of around 7 to 10 years. People are staying longer, partly because of low rates, but also because they're using homes more and avoiding moving costs as well. Homeowners rating quality of life averaged 7.4 on a 1 to 10 scale, compared to renters at 6.22. So clearly, homeowners are more happy than renters. Homeowners are in homes that fit their lives. A homeowner in the wrong house for their current stage of life is different. The common life stages that trigger the need to move: growing families needing more bedrooms, empty nesters wanting to downsize, job changes requiring relocation, lifestyle shifts, right? Maybe you got a promotion at work where you're now making significantly more than you were before. And in order to keep up with the Joneses, you decided you need a pool with an outdoor patio in your backyard with a outdoor kitchen, whatever, something to that effect, right? So kind of today, what we're going to be talking about is kind of the fallacy, I would say, of the interest rate is keeping you in your home. One of the things in the beginning of this, the intro kind of alludes to this. We see a lot of people that are interested in moving, just not moving. And every single time I ask them, what's the main reason for you not to move? It's like, well, I've got a 2.6 or 3% interest rate. Why would I move? I'm never moving. I'm just going to live here like this forever. So when you see that at that open house, what do you say? What do you say to them, Jason?
I don't know. So typically for me, if, I think it's all fear-based, right? You're in an open house for a reason, right? It's usually a lifestyle type change. But if you're there, but you're using that interest rate as a shield, I think it's because it's familiar to you. I think people just fear change, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they use that interest rate as the reason. Now, I also think that in order for them to change, this is also something very common. In order for them to change and get a higher interest rate, they've got to see the perfect house. The problem is, like I said, I think this is going to be if I ever write a book, the title is going to be, there's just that one thing, right? There's always that one thing that's, you're never going to, there is no such thing as the perfect house. There's always going to be something. And so I think that people go in looking for what they think is the perfect house. But I think it also keeps them from kind of making the changes that are necessary in their life. Again, there's a reason why they're there. And it's not just it's not a what do you call it? This is a hobby of mine to go look at homes. Maybe it is to an extent, but again, there's a lot of hobbies you could have. Looking at homes is not a common one to have unless you're actually looking to move.
Yeah, I feel that every time we have somebody that comes into an open house, they're serial open housers, and I love that. I think it's great because we see them all the time, and in fact, we're building relationships with them over time, and that's why I kind of laugh. It's a bit of a chuckle in the fact that we see them all the time, and that they really do want to move. And a lot of times they tell you exactly that. Well, my rate's really good, so I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. And I understand a lot of people will go to open houses, especially neighbors, to get design ideas,
Yeah.
essentially,
Yeah.
which is fine. It's great. And I don't know, before I was an agent, I didn't really frequent open houses. Became an agent, they kind of became a thing. Like I would go visit them just because now I'm an agent and it's an opportunity for me to see other houses that are on the market, be aware of stuff like when we run into buyers that, because we take them around and show them properties and stuff, and they tell us what they want. And you've seen these other houses with other clients, maybe that where those houses didn't work for them. And so you know what's already out there on the market. So when they do come to you and they say, "Hey, this is what I'm looking for," I'm like, boom, I've actually toured this house before. This is going to be perfect for you. And for whatever reason, it may not even shown up on their search when they were doing their search. That's one of the things that drives me nuts about searches. And I know I'm kind of going on a tangent here. However, this is one of the things that I think is important when using an agent, that they actually have ideas and knowledge of what else is out there. So when someone does describe what they're looking for, you already have an idea of 2, 3, 4 houses that you've already toured that would be a good fit. So sorry to go off on that tangent. Back to interest rates as basically a shield, is I think that's actually a great way of putting it. Most folks, and we talked about these statistics, right? So in 2020 and 2021, mortgage rates hit that historic low. The 30-year fixed rate hit 2.65%, which was the lowest on record. And you're talking about even being able to buy down. So some people have lower rates than that because they bought them down even. The first 5 years of a mortgage, essentially you're paying almost pure interest. So a lot of times, most people, when they sell their home, they are essentially getting back whatever their down payment was. They're living basically rent free for the time that they're in property. So say they sell the house for the same amount. You've essentially lived in that house for free for however long you've been there. And the other part is that most times you're really just taking the equity of what the house has gained over the 5 years and putting it onto the next mortgage. And really, most people are only paying down their principal a teeny tiny little bit because most of it is still interest. It's after that 5-year mark where more money starts to go towards the principal. And if you look the amortization schedule, and the amortization is like one of my least favorite words because I struggle with saying it. But if you look at that schedule, it lays it right out for you exactly where the money's going. Now, two things that you really don't get back are your taxes and your insurance. But when you break down a loan where it's principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, the taxes and insurance, like that's terrible. And one of the things is right now is insurance, especially in our area, as we're staring down a tropical depression coming our way. Uh, the interest and insurance is expensive. It's extremely expensive. And so it's almost becoming cost prohibitive. And if I'm a politician right now, one of the things that I'm probably looking for in order to make houses more affordable are finding ways to make insurance cheaper and also to cut back on the tax burden on
Yeah.
these.
And not the way they're proposing to do the taxes.
Uh,
That's a whole nother kettle of fish.
yeah,
So
I get, yeah, 100% agree.
I think I
And
just showed my age, by the way, by saying kettle of fish. So
kettle of fish.
yeah, even you're
Yeah,
like, I don't know what that means.
I'm like, is that like Swedish fish? I used to eat those and I was pretty solid. Uh,
Eh,
yeah, so that to me, I understand. So people want to stay in homes longer and they're getting more equity and stuff out of their homes and this and that and whatever. That's great. I do love all of that. And you know me, one of my biggest things that I really get upset about in general is the idea of taxing people out of their homes. So when we continue to get these yearly pushes for where you have to go and fight your tax appraised value, I think it's out of control.
It-
And
I'll be honest with you, going back to conversations at open houses with customers, I don't think they understand how that really works. I think they just know what they pay a month, right? I've had people actually say, well, my my interest rate keeps going up because my monthly is going up. I'm like, that's not your interest rate. That's not how that works.
yeah,
That's
exactly.
that's the other two things that can go up and down from year to year. And so I think the whole idea of the interest rate has become ever, I guess, because, again, after COVID, that was the thing that they did to try to get people hooked into buying homes, to try to stimulate the market. And so I think people have that whole aspect of the home buying process, which is really kind of a small part of it, really.
Mhm.
Um, I would argue to expand on something you said a second ago. I think people look at homes as, I want to make as much money as I can, as opposed to, hey, if we know that the average that you're staying in a home is anywhere from, we'll just say 5 to 12 years, whatever, depending on your situation. It's just part of the process to get where you want to be. And so if you can, use the equity in your home to get into your next home, that you've won. You know what I mean? You've won. And so, but I think there's a lot of misconceptions on what goes into your monthly payment and what goes into those things like what we're talking about, and that the interest rate is really just a small portion of, even though it doesn't feel that way, it really kind of is. And
Well,
so I wanted to
especially,
say that because it's weird. I'm talking to other adults and I'm having to explain to them how their monthly payment works. It's like, that's something you should probably know about. So, uh,
yeah, it's essentially a quarter of the piece, right? So your
right,
PITI
right,
interest is one of four things. So 25% of what goes into what your costs are going to be.
right, right.
And that's exactly, I think you made a great point there. What is the purpose of the move? Like, again, over and over again, especially with the statistics that I keep hearing, you go to real estate conferences, you go to this event, you go to that event, and they talk about what are the factors that make people move. And it's all lifestyle stuff. It's usually life changes. So when I look at these statistics a couple of years ago, when I'm sitting at family reunion or mega camp and they're running through the year's numbers and stuff, the 21% of all existing mortgages have a rate below 3% is actually lower than what it was then. Like, I want to say it was closer to 50-60%.
Yeah,
So
it
people
was.
have been moving,
Yeah,
right? And they don't have those same rates. It's because they're not trying to time the market. And I think it's kind of foolish and egotistical, even almost, to try to time the market. I feel like I've never timed anything ever in my life. And the first house we ever bought was in 2008. I had no idea that there was like a housing crisis or crash or whatever. And we got into this house that was 2,800 square foot, 4 bedrooms, 3 bath, and it had a pool, basically a bachelor's paradise. And it only cost like 165, 170, I think, is what we paid for it. Contrasting that with today, like a 160 to $175,000 house is like a
yeah,
900 square foot house in the hood.
yeah. It's crazy.
So to me, it's wild. Number one, how much housing costs have gone up. The price of homes has gone up. That to me may be more of a prohibiting factor.
I think that that's really what it is. People focus because, again, if you think about it, people get hooked into what's been beaten into their brain, right? So after COVID, it was, oh, these are the interest rates, interest rates, interest rates, interest rates, and so that's just what people equate to having a better deal. What they're kind of ignoring is it's not the interest rate; it's the fact that the prices have gone up so dramatically after COVID. And I try to explain to people too. That this is what the market's been the last couple of years. It's the market correcting itself, and so, for sellers, they're mad because they think the market's terrible. Well, it's just correcting from when you bought. So you're just mad that it's not increasing the same. But yet when you're on the buy side, you don't think it should be that way. You know what I mean? So like you said, you go back to egotistical, you can't have it both ways. You know what I mean? Either you don't get as good a deal on the sell side and you get a great deal on the buy side, or vice versa. It's rare that it's going to happen. And again, it goes back to timing the market. That's a hard thing to do, to try to time it where you get a great deal on the sell side and a great deal on the buy side. And if you do, that's awesome. But, there's so many variables that go into that, down to where you're buying and, there's so many variables that go into it. So, I think if people focus more on what was important, like quality of life, as opposed to, again, feeling like they're winning or getting a great interest rate. The great thing about interest rates, those change. The price of your home doesn't change. So if you can get a home for a good price right now, especially, you got to go for it, because those interest rates will change and you can take advantage of those. And that actually you have a little bit more control over. You know what I mean? Because you can refinance whenever you want to. And but yeah, I think the big thing is the life changes should be the important part of the home buying process. Now, if you're buying homes to make money, that's a whole nother conversation. But, most people aren't doing that. Most people are, yeah, they want to feel like they're getting a great deal, but what it comes down to is your family. What's the best situation for you and your family? And that's not always a part of the conversation that people want to talk about when they come to open houses. They would, and again, we keep talking about open houses because that's where we talk to the most people. So,
Yeah. Well, it's how you get that finger on the pulse, right? Of what's actually going on. Because here's the other thing too. And I was just thinking about this while you're talking. Uh, some of these statistics don't make sense to me, because having conversations with people out there, I know there's a delay. I know that there's a story. I know that there's things going on behind the scenes, behind the data. And at the same time, I consistently see 3% or more down from sold to list price. So when people are talking about the market being flat, sure, like you pull up data for the whole area and you have where prices are pretty much flat. I saw some agent post in Talk of League City the other day to kind of drum up business or something about how prices have basically stayed the same. I'm not discrediting that, because I'm sure that there's data to support where he got that information from. And at the same time, consistently, I'm seeing 3% down, at least in the houses that we're involved in, like where we're negotiating on the buy side or we're negotiating on the selling side. Very consistently, 3%. I'm seeing maximum seller concessions. So the other part of that is too, is that your sold to list price, it may be, you may get, I don't know, 2% off the cost, like off of the sales price, but then you also have an additional 3 or 4% in seller concessions that are also what I would consider being taken off of the price. Like, so some of this data is a little misleading, because the sellers themselves are not necessarily netting what it says on the MLS, right? And because Texas is a non-disclosure state, no one else is really supposed to know that. Uh, that's why you want to hire a real estate agent. I mean, this is another aside, that you want to hire a real estate agent to run comps for you or get you a buyer or a broker opinion of value. We have access to the data, whereas no one else is supposed to. Are they getting it? Probably. Uh, and essentially, I'm not 100% sure unless it's coming from the data source that I know, which is straight from the multiple listing service. So a lot of this stuff, it's hit or miss on where the data actually lies. And the interesting part about this is that, even that all said, just like you were talking about, this is a great time to buy because the prices are down. As interest rates drop, essentially you're going to get more demand, more buyer demand. And when demand goes up, we all know the idea of supply and demand. Supply starts to become more scarce. And what does that do to the price? It pushes it up. So this is kind of that trough. And we've been talking about this for 3 to 4 years, probably. I feel like a broken record at this point. But right now, you're going to get a great deal on any house that you're looking at, because you're going to be able to ask for things off. Now, that being said, we have been involved in a multiple offer situation. It's closing in a couple weeks. And it's funny because the agent acted very arrogant in the negotiations on this, because there were multiple offers and then essentially a backup offer and all that. And that being said, there's always going to be some give and take in the negotiations. The sellers may have all the leverage in one situation, and then maybe something else comes up like a low appraisal, or maybe closing has to get pushed or something to that effect. And you're going to need some help from those buyers. This is why you don't act like a jerk in negotiations, because now you've just made it harder for your sellers because your ego has created this false sense of security where you can dictate essentially how everything's going to go.
Think there are a number of agents out there that let their ego get in the way, and they think that being a hard ass is what's best for their client, and it's really not usually. And so you should learn that pretty early in becoming an agent. Is it the way you negotiate with somebody? It's all on behalf and in the name of your client, and you're doing what's best for them, not what's best for you to, act a certain way. So it's a problem sometimes.
Yeah, I know. And I know we're kind of going off on an aside on this. At the same time, yeah, I learned, and I apologize to the agents that I worked with early on in my career, because I legitimately thought that my job as an agent, my fiduciary duty to my client, was to essentially be a immovable object. And again, it's a negotiation and it's a conversation. If they're going to give you everything, I'll take it. However, I'm not going to be rigid and a jerk about it. It's all in how you present it. If you're willing to work with the other side, you're able to get a lot more than what you normally did. And the reason that we're discussing this part in this particular podcast is that there's these little things in the negotiations and stuff that are in the situations of the process of the transaction where you can make up some of that extra money that makes the difference in the interest rate, right? So you can get those seller concessions to buy down the rate. And we're in this situation right now, like not if, we're in this type of market, you're able to get those types of things that are going to help buy down the rate and do other things that are help offset the costs. Essentially, what is probably most important to most people, and I think you've already mentioned this earlier, is the monthly payment. What makes up that monthly payment? And like we said, the interest rate is one of four things that affect the monthly payment. Obviously, principal and the amount that you borrow, right, are going to mess with that interest rate. And then the tax and insurance, taxes, whatever it was appraised for tax value wise, is going to affect that. And then the insurance also, age of roof, huge thing for that. So if you run into the inspections and stuff and you find out that the roof is 12 years old and you're able to negotiate with a seller to either make a claim on insurance that they missed in a previous storm or something like that, or they replace the roof, now your insurance is going to be also cheaper. So there's factors that all go into this, and it's important that you're navigating this with some sort of level of education. And this is exactly why we're doing this. We're having these conversations so that you're better informed and being able to go about these things. So little. Think back, okay? Think back to when you took your classes and you did the training and all that stuff to get your real estate license. Do you recall any of that kind of thing being discussed or being pointed out? Now, these are all things that come from the experience. And I'm not talking experience that, I've held a license for 20 years. Congratulations. I'm talking about how many transactions have you been through where you've had to experience these things, work through them, and then you pick up on, whoa, this is an opportunity for either we can get a better deal for a client, or, hey, these are the things that we look for in order to try and make things better, smoother, cheaper for your client. And I think that those are super important things. I don't necessarily think that an agent that has tons of years of experience, and the other part of it too is like, does your agent reflect on the transactions after it's closed? Where they think about, I probably could have done this better. And then for the next time you get into that transaction, you do that. I feel like so many are like, they just jump to the closing table and they're like, oh, I'm the best agent in the world. Look at me. And they forget that this is all a growing experience. Like, how do we get from here to here and get better on the next one? Right. So, again, I feel like we tangented, like the ADHD in this particular
That's all
episode
right.
is like all over.
Yeah.
The other, to get us back on track, we're talking about the financial argument that sounds good but isn't the real issue. So on paper, the math is good, right? The interest rate, a 2.5% rate locked in for 30 years while you continue paying down principal is generally great financially. You'd be foolish to leave that for a 6%. And at the same time, the point of this whole episode is to basically talk about the fact that, is the rate what's keeping you in the home? Are you suffering because of it? And that's the evaluation that you have to make, is that does your lifestyle suffer because of it? I know that people always say, I don't want to be house broke, right? 100%. I agree. And at the same time, when you're talking about saving a little bit of money here and there, quit rolling through Starbucks and you're still going to be able to go on the vacations that you can go on.
Talk about a tangent. That's what you spend your money on. DoorDash, that I refuse. I'll drive across town to get something before I pay double for what I'm getting because of DoorDash. But that's a whole nother tangent.
Yeah.
But
Well,
again, it feeds into what we think we can afford, right? I spent 20 plus years where we would think, oh, we need to save money for something, whatever it is, right? It doesn't matter. It's for anything. And the one thing that we weren't willing to change, which was probably what was costing us thousands of dollars a month, was, food costs, because we eat out or, whatever. And everybody has their thing, right? Every morning I buy energy drinks on the way to work every morning. And it used to be worse because, me, I'm a Red Bull guy, but, 20-ounce sugar-free Red Bull, that's the thing. And so those things are like $5-6 a piece, right? Which, you're like, whatever, it's one a day, but 5 days a week, that you're talking about upwards of $25-30 a week just on one beverage a day. You know what I mean? And so, I think, again, going back to what you're just saying, the math isn't what brought you, the math of the interest rate isn't what brought you to the open house or to go look at houses. It's the fact that, it's because something in your current situation isn't working anymore. And so I think if people would focus on those things, they can get where they need to be. They can get what they want at the price that they feel comfortable with. But they have to be willing to do certain things in their life to do that. But again, it goes back to the rate becoming the shield, the force field around me. I don't want to talk about anything but the rate because I don't feel comfortable, dealing with those things. And I think it's just it's kind of become the socially acceptable reason to say why you're not moving instead of admitting, the real reason. So
that's 100%. And I like the fact that you said socially acceptable, because that is exactly what it is.
Yep.
You are suffering. You're suffering. You're still doing it because that's socially acceptable, or you feel cool at least to say, I've got a 3% interest rate.
Yeah, it's a weird flex. It's definitely a weird flex. You took advantage of something that everybody had opportunity to have. It's not really a flex that you did something. I mean, like I say, good on you, man. That's a great situation. But
let me tell you, speaking of that, how many people I begged to go buy a house during that time, and they're like, the market's going to crash. The market's going to crash.
That's the other socially acceptable thing to say, is that something's going to crash. Homes, cars, whatever.
I'm glad that everybody seems to have a crystal ball. The funny thing is this, I laugh, and my brother's a firefighter, so this is how I picture. The guys are sitting around the firehouse and they're all talking about these things. They're solving all the world's issues, right? And hey, we were in a coach's office. It was the same thing.
Same thing, yeah.
Maybe you get together a group of guys, gals, whatever, and everybody decides that they're all experts because they Google searched something one time, and it could have been months ago, so things could have completely changed. And now you are an expert on that particular field. Trust me, There are so many things I'm not an expert in. And I do feel confident talking about what we're dealing with every single day because we see it. We see it, we hear it. We're looking at the data all the time. I mean, maybe if you've got an agent that's an ostrich and it's got a head in the sand, by the way, keep an ostrich away from Kevin Hart. I don't know if you've ever seen that. He freaks like, I've never seen a grown man so afraid of one of probably, I don't know. I mean, other than dude, where's my car? I've never seen an ostrich attack anyone.
That's a logical fear, though.
Yeah, I know.
He lived it. He lived it, right? So
Right. So so I'm telling you, as long as you don't have your head in the sand, you know what's going on. You see it, you feel it. And sadly, what's funny is I feel like it's a week to week feeling right now because there's so much uncertainty in the market with the things going on across the globe. I don't know, like terrorists, the stuff with the conflict with Iran, like the price of gas, and all of this stuff, right, contributes to these Fed meetings where they discuss whether or not they're going to increase or lower interest rates, and a lot of that has to do with inflation. And sure, I'm glad that inflation's under control because I feel like for a while things were just wild. Like the cost of eggs, for example. Like I remember seeing the memes or whatever where they're like, proof of funds? Let me open my fridge and show you all the eggs I've got in here. Like it's to me, I love that we have access to all this information. And at the same time, I feel like the problem is we've lost the ability to critically think about these numbers and even critically think about stuff like we're talking about with these interest rates. What does this actually do to affect whether or not I'm going to move? Right? Is this extra $200, $300 a month in this moment going to make or break whether or not I have 4 kids in my house and 2 of them are having to share a bedroom because we're in a 3-bedroom house? Where's the pain? Is the pain the fact that you're going to have to increase your interest rate from what you currently have? Or is the pain maybe monthly? The thing is this, sure. And this would be the case in any case. If you're upsizing, you're going to a bigger house. Your payments are going to go up. If you were a first-time home buyer, that would be an issue because you don't necessarily have this down payment to be able to put on the house. If you're upsizing, you're already having something that you're selling, which you may not get the same price for it that you would have gotten a year ago or maybe 2 years ago. However, you still have equity that has grown within that, and you now have a larger down payment that you can put on the next house that could essentially you upsize and your payments go down because you're not financing as much money, right? There are so many factors that go into that. And I don't think that people see or think about those things because all they ever see, and I'm telling you, we name our podcasts in a contrarian way a lot of times because people are drawn to that negativity. It's clickbait. And so what does the news always want to report on? Doom and gloom. Let's just get information out there for the sake of information and let people make decisions on that data based off of how it affects them. So my thing is that these life stages, growing families, empty nesters that, I mean, the Williamses, we helped them out. They've got 2 kids in college. One just graduated and one's a year away. So they don't need a 5,000 square foot house anymore, right? So they downsized and they chuckled at me. They're like, Troy, we almost doubled what we bought this house for when we bought it. I don't know. I can't remember how many years ago. So they're using that equity to now have a lower monthly payment. And so when they downsize, they only downsize to a 4,000 square foot house. So they took 1,000 square feet out of that house into the next one. And yet their payments are going to be way less. And that was even with the house having doubled. So there's so many factors that go into it. And this is even with taxes going higher and the insurance being higher. So this is why I think it's important that if you're going through a life change, to sit down with an agent and let's look at what that looks like. Is this going to double my payment or maybe potentially be less or the same?
Right.
And
Well,
what has changed in my life, money wise, like over time, you're supposed to be making more money, right? I know that that's not necessarily always the case coming from the teacher, the education world, where every year you got a raise, they then also increase the cost of your insurance premium.
insurance. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I get it. Trust me, we've been there and done that. I feel your pain. And I also want to make sure that your everyday is less stressful. And when you're living in a situation where you've outgrown your home, or maybe you have too big of a house and you have to clean 4 bathrooms and there's only 2 of you in the house and 2 of the bathrooms are upstairs, is that quality of life worth it?
Well, and just lifestyle changes in general. Like you have to. I think too when people have these conversations, they focus on the numbers. What they don't think about is like, for example, okay, I've got more kids now. They're small kids, whatever. I want to live in a cul-de-sac, right? What is the value of that to you? That your kids can play on a street in a section of the street that's safe, that there's very few cars, and so it's an area that you and the neighbor kids can hang out and do whatever. Like nobody thinks about that as those costs that is that worth an extra $50 a month on my, I'm just throwing that number out there. It doesn't mean anything, but is that worth that? What is the value to you? It's not always just about the strict math of what's going on. Cause I'm telling you right now, when I moved, we were in the situation where we had 3-bedroom house, 3 kids, 2 of them were sharing a room. And my thing was, I want my kids, because they never really said, Dad, I wish you'd get a bigger house so I can have my own space. But I know that that's, again, they're boys. They all want their own space. They don't want to freaking live in the same room together if they don't have to. And that was my goal when I went to the next house, was I want to make sure that I have enough room for them to have their own space. And they love it. And so I was willing to pay more for that. Because again, for me, that's where the value is. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's tied into a certain number. It's what am I willing to pay for that type of I'm going to say luxury, but it's not really luxury. It's just for, everybody wants their own space. And so, those are all things that I think maybe I need to even focus on having those conversations more, is just pose the question, if, and again, just using my situation as an example, what value does that hold for you? You know what I mean? Are you willing to pay a little bit more a month, or just maybe not make as much on the sale of your house, or whatever it is, right? It's whatever that value is to you. And but again, people use that math as a shield, because it's easy. It's easier to deal with that than it is to deal with actually making that change, like you were saying earlier. Because again, it's always scary and it's always a pain in the butt sometimes, and that you got to deal with. But those are temporary, right? Those are temporary, because I promise you, it's like what we tell people all the time when they're moving. Hey, moving is not always fun, right? Man, when you're finally in there and you get to take a breath and you've made that change that you wanted, man, that feeling is like no other. You know what I mean? It's like taking that sigh of relief, kind of a thing. So, but I feel like I think we need to maybe change the framing of the conversation a little bit to get people to understand really what it is they're actually, again, using through the context of the open houses. Why are you actually here? It's not to save money on an interest rate. It's really not. There's a reason why you're here. And so, I think at the very least, it'll make people think about things, maybe where they could work it to their advantage. So, but
Yeah, essentially it comes down to interest rate, right? You keep talking about the reason, like survey after survey after survey, the reason that you're not moving, interest rate, interest rate, interest rate. Everybody holds their breath every time the Fed has a meeting, and all like the lenders and stuff. And I think it's too much. It's a cop out. It's taking the easy way out. It's using the interest rate as an excuse. And I think that there's other questions that need to be asked. And so, in
it,
order to Yeah, go ahead.
No, I want to say this because you know me, I've got old man brain. So if I don't say it now, it's gonna jump out of my head. People didn't move because of the interest rates. Okay, that was the vehicle, right? That helped. People moved because of lifestyle. Remember, think about it. Back in COVID, people wanted pools, they wanted things like that. So they made lifestyle changes. That was what made them move. It wasn't that it was interest rate. That just made it easier, you know.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
it
it was a
made it
bonus.
no-brainer. It's a
Yeah,
no-brainer at that
right.
point.
It was a bonus. But again, they forget why they actually moved to begin with. Nobody moves because of an interest rate, good or bad, you know, positive or negative. They don't move because of an interest rate. That's just one of the motivators or detractors. You move for that lifestyle change. And I think people that have moved into their current situations, again, they keep using that interest rate as a reason why they can't move. But that's not why you moved there to begin with. It wasn't because you got a good interest rate. It's because you moved into a home that you wanted to move into. Again, pool, upsizing, whatever it was. And so why would you use that as an excuse now not to move again? It doesn't make sense to me. So
Well, that's the thing. I mean, essentially, anybody who wasn't making that lifestyle change at the time, what did they do? They refinanced.
yeah, that's what we did.
Yeah. So like it's not because you didn't move because of the interest rate, right? You stayed put, you refinanced, you maybe paid off some bills and stuff because essentially I've heard it a million times. Well, 2-3%, that's free money,
Yeah,
right?
right.
And so yeah, what a great way, and I think a financial vehicle to be able to put yourself in a better position, and at the same time, it's not the reason that you moved. So this also works in the opposite, right? So what's keeping you from moving shouldn't or isn't the interest rate. It's the decisions that you're making are based off of lifestyle change, and essentially we can break these down into some questions. So I'm gonna go after this right now. I'm gonna say, so you're stop asking can I afford to move when you should be asking can I afford not to. So what in my lifestyle could improve based off of getting in a better situation. And like you said, during COVID a lot of people were moving because of pools, right? And which is why the cost of pools skyrocketed during that time because people didn't want to share a public pool, right? And with the more recent stuff going on in Marbella, where they're complaining about how this is funny. I love having my ear to the ground in our farm neighborhoods. They're upset right now in Marbella because the pool is disgusting. Like there's hair, like a bunch of hair in the filters, things and stuff like that, and blah blah blah. And they don't feel like it's being cleaned enough. And this was all a byproduct, essentially, of the fact that they wanted the pool open more often during the summer. And then they've also extended the hours beyond once the school year starts and all that. So uh, you're always, that's the whole dichotomy, right? Like we talk about the dichotomy of leadership and all that. The dichotomy of having the pool be accessed more is that it's going to get dirty and you're going to have to find times to clean it. Typically, it was a Monday that they would shut the pool down and get it nice and clean and ready for the rest of the week. I don't know if that's still the case. And I just know that there's a lot of grumbling going on over there about that. Um, so that being said, problems with having a public pool, what do you do? Well, you could move to a house that already has a pool, or you could build one. There's a give and take in that too. Do you spend the money for what used to be a standard pool was like $40,000, like I don't know, right before COVID. You could get a nice pool with a spa and some, maybe fire bowls and stuff like $60,000-$70,000. That same pool now, 120 plus. So what's wild about that is now are you making a decision to buy a home that already has a pool, or do you build the pool where you're at? Does your yard have the space to build a pool? Because essentially, if you're looking at most of the neighborhoods around here, you're talking about 7,000 square foot lots. If you're a one story, the footprint of your house takes up that whole lot. If you're a two story, you might have the space to be able to do it. And again, it's a decision that you have to make about your lifestyle, right? So what are some other things that you've seen in the market that would have, like a pool, for example, that would keep people or make people move? Where do you see it?
Well, I mean, there's always a number of things, and it's things that we've kind of touched on in this conversation is pools, bedrooms, bathrooms. Sometimes maybe they want the oversized garage or the apartment over the garage, right? These are things that you can't always just do, right? And so there's a ton of things that make you want to move, and so you have to decide is what is the I think you said it earlier. The cost of, how much it's going to cost me to move. But the question should be, how much it's going to cost me not to move. You know what I mean? And it's not just always about money. It's about, again, it's lifestyle. And so, or maybe it's, can I afford to move, but can I afford not to? Right. And so, but again, it would make sense instead of spending $100,000 plus. And by the way, $100,000 gets you the basic pool. It seems like nowadays, you know what I mean? You may get some, the pebble tech or whatever. It's going to cost you. But if you want the outdoor kitchen and the pavilion or whatever it is, it's going to be considerably more. So it definitely would make more sense to buy a house that has that pool already. You know what I mean? And you're right. A lot of the neighborhoods around here with one stories, especially if they're a little bit newer, if it's a one story, good luck. Good luck finding space for that. You know what I mean? It's almost like you'd have to be in a 2-story in order to have the money and the space to put the pool in. And so, we keep going back to the same thing, right? It's about lifestyle and where you're at in your life, and what is that value to you? And I don't know. What do you? I think you always have good takes on that about the can I afford to move versus can I afford not to?
Well, I think one of the biggest things, essentially, is garage space. So here's an example I was thinking of as we were talking about this. Is we've had people move because the driveway is a single lane driveway, and that's typical with a detached garage, right? So there's some kind of give and take with a detached garage. I know a lot of people prefer a detached garage, especially guys, because they typically turn that into a man cave, right? And so,
but there's something about that detached garage. I think growing up when you watch movies, like Home Alone, all those houses, right? They all had detached garages. That was just the cool thing, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. And so if you're a guy that likes to work on projects or you want to get out of the house, maybe your wife hates your guts and they don't want you in the house, you have that detached garage space that you can go to, right? So maybe that helps your marriage because you're outside and not underfoot and in their hair, and they don't see you sitting in the easy chair while dishes are going on or something. I don't know.
That would be a heck of a conversation. Hey, so what makes you want to move here? I need a detached garage to save my marriage. That's
well, essentially, the sad thing is like we joking about it, but essentially that could be a thing, right?
Definitely.
The other part about that is as you have a growing family, you now have kids that have vehicles and a single lane garage where you're having to play musical cars to be able to let them in and out and all that, so that not everybody's parked on the street,
right,
is a thing. So maybe you're moving because of that. Maybe you're moving because you need a 3-car garage, and so you typically a 3-car garage side by side, you get an extra lane in your driveway, right? So it makes it easier to park more cars in the driveway. This is a lifestyle thing, right? This may only last for 4 or 5 years. So most people that, the kids are aged probably about 3-4 years apart for the most part. You get one that's 16. The one behind is probably 12 or 14. By the time they move out, you now have another driver, and then you've got all these vehicles in the driveway that you now have to deal with. So that's another example outside of a pool where you might have that lifestyle change. We talked earlier about younger families where you go from a 3-bedroom and now you might need a 4-bedroom because you've got more kids because they're growing up. One of the rooms is not a nursery anymore. I've seen, and I'm sure you have as well, where there's a 10 by 10 box as a secondary bedroom in some of these houses, and you're like, this is not a space for an older child.
Great for a baby, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't
Yeah.
need
Because you need a changing table and a crib.
yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
pretty much.
yeah, with some trendy decorative thing with like their initials on the wall
Well,
or
and
something.
we've seen where homeowners have taken doors off of closets for their kids so they can put their computers in the closet, which is really weird, but
Yeah.
you see it. Well, that to me
Yeah.
is a sign, hey, maybe we need to find something that's got space for these kids, because that also pushes the man out, right? The bigger the kids get, the more space in the house that's needed in the common areas, and so it's like, well, I'm gonna just go out in the garage. That'll be my space.
Yeah. Exactly. So those are some of the things that you think about, right? Maybe let's say, oh God, this is a problem I'd love to have. You've got a boat, and the boat, maybe boat storage, maybe because a lot of these neighborhoods aren't going to allow you to have a boat in your driveway. So you got to pay for separate storage. Then on top of that, maybe you get a boat slip that costs money. So what's your solution to that? I'll get a house on the water that has its own dock, right? Or whatever. And so now, number one, you can maintain your own boat. You can spray the bottom and make sure it's clean as you lift it out and all this other stuff, whatever. Essentially, your life, you save $400-500 a month in boat storage or whatever else, because fancier boat storage, which something that I would do if I have my own boat, is I want to be able to call the marina and say, "Hey, we're coming to put the boat on the water. Can you drop it in for us?" Right? And then you pull it back up to the dock, and then they pull it out and they do the cleaning and all that stuff. Great. Just another example. Now we're talking bougie here. Okay. The next step is my airplane, right? Or whatever. I mean, I'm someday, right? Someday. But let's just say that, like, because this is a legitimate problem in different, yeah, this is a legitimate problem for different price
Yeah,
points,
yeah.
right? So, what is it? Why do you need to move? And essentially, I'll tell you this too: people in that price range, they don't give a flying poo poo
Nope.
about interest rates.
No, they do.
Because a lot of them are in jumbo loans anyways,
Yeah.
or whatever. So those rates are typically higher anyways. It's essentially pay to play. It's the cost of playing. And that's how most people, I think, that operate at the higher value folks, it's a opportunity cost is what they're mostly measuring at that point, right? So that's the thing. And I know that we've rambled on quite a bit here. So here's the thing. Are you trapped by a mortgage rate, or are you trapped by fear of change? And then what is it? And quit hiding behind that socially acceptable shield.
Yeah. Quit hiding behind the math.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of the interest rate. I get it. It probably on paper makes sense. And essentially, I hope that what we've done is explain to you why the interest rate isn't the reason that you're moving or not moving. It's other things. And we're using the shield, the protection of that flex. I've got a 2.7% interest rate. I'm not moving anywhere, right?
They always seem to have their chin a little bit higher when they
Yeah.
talk about it.
I've got the nose. I think it's the nose that goes up. But
Yeah.
Essentially, that's what it is. And so we're here to tell you that we hear you. We're listening to you. And at the same time, we've analyzed it ourselves. And logically, it's just not what's keeping you from moving. And so when you tell me that, I appreciate it. I respect it. And at the same time, I also know that I can ask a few more questions and go deeper and find out what the real reason is.
Right.
So if I don't ask, it's because I have a feeling based off of the tone and all the stuff that you're saying that it may not be a conversation to have in an open house. That this is something that we need to sit down and talk about in more of a consultative role, right? So cool. I'm all for it. And so here's the thing. Here's our call to action on this. I'm going to call it out as it is. Our call to action is that if the interest rate is what you're telling us is the reason that you're not moving, we would love to sit down with you and have a one-on-one, two-on-one conversation about what it is that you need, and does it make sense to make a move regardless of the interest rate. And that's what we'll do. So if you go visit the website, you can comment, you can please like and subscribe so that we can continue to ramble on for future. And you can see us do this. And at the same time, if this is a question that you really want to explore, or because it may or may not be, then reach out. You can go to our website, troychasehomes.com, jasonnelms.troychasehomes.com. Also, if you want to talk to Jason specifically, and let's set up an appointment where we sit down and consult. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to move. We just want to talk to you and see, does it make sense? Does it make sense to sell the house that you're in to then upsize or downsize? Does it make sense to, if you're renting right now, to purchase, right? Wherever you're at in your life is different for everybody, which is why everything I think about with real estate is customization. It's bespoke, right? It's tailored to whatever your life is. And I think that that's also part of the reason why real estate agents charge so much for what they do. And they joke all the time, like, I'm a therapist and this and that, and whatever. But essentially, we need to sit down and talk about what your needs are, and can we solve some of your other problems that would make more sense, and can we save you money, and then also could we do it even for the same amount but have a better situation? So that's what we'd love for you to do. We'd love to have those conversations with you.
Absolutely.
And that's it. We're signing off. Until we come up with a sign off or whatever, this is going to be the weirdest closings until maybe I need to talk to Claude or something about what is a good sign off.
Let the AI tell us how to sign off, I guess.
Yeah. Because my problem is I want to copy everybody else. And if I see somebody because Derek, I love Derek, where he taps the thing.
Oh, yeah.
He does his videos.
Yeah.
It's a great way to do it. And I would have never thought of that had I not seen Derek do it. And at the same time, now all I can think about is starting my videos with tapping the camera. So, yeah.
That's fun.
So, hey, little salute to you, Derek, in your inspection videos, brother.
Best inspector work.
That's right. All right. Well, we're out of here. So we'll see you guys soon.